2,
1.
Megan Pearson
And Dylan Coney on the Living Life Authentically podcast.
Episode number 7.
Hello.
Second episode of 2021. Last week we kind of set out the year of what our goals are going to be and what we're going to work towards for 2021. And this week we're going to be talking about criticism.
Firstly,
Okay.
how is your goals going? Because you don't like the word New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, no.
We are about a week and a half into 2021.
To be fully honest, quite terrible, actually.
Okay, you can't do that.
What do you
We
mean?
have to be leading by example.
I know, and I'm not. And I'm being honest and authentic about the
You know
fact
what?
that I've
You
struggled
should go.
this week.
Okay, go to your fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Go
Okay.
to your fridge.
Go get the thing.
Yes, because if you listen to the episode from last week, then you would know we wrote down all of these like goals and we had a conversation about what the year is going like. Thank you. And I just want to like quickly see like from a week of how we're doing. You know what? You said, because one of the questions was, what do I need to do in the first 3 months of 2021? Budgeting.
Yeah.
You've got a big whiteboard that we're going to
It's true.
put your budgeting
That's
on.
like
So that's really good.
That's like literally the only thing that I've made progress on, though. I have not worked out this week. Well, like last week, I did not work out at all.
Yeah.
And my streaming setup is a pain in the butt right now, trying to get it all set up with the tech and stuff.
But you're trying at
Yeah,
least.
I guess I'm working towards it, but I just haven't made progress on it.
That's
is what
fair.
I'm trying to say.
That's fair. No, I've been trying to work out too, but again, I haven't been
You're doing better than I am.
consistent. I think that's like the most important part of whatever like your goals were for this year is like as long as you are consistent with them, then it is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about criticism. This is coming from actually someone who listens to the podcast and had the question about how do you handle day-to-day criticism, whether that is like with our work, with our jobs, or just in general in relationships.
So we're going to do a whole freaking episode on
That's
it.
what we're going to talk about today. So first, Dylan.
Yep.
I think you have almost a bit more to dive in onto this topic about
Probably,
criticism, even stemming from like your childhood in those early stages of going into school, classmates, friends. So what was like that situation like? Like put us in that situation of how you were feeling.
I'd say like when I grew up in school and like going through elementary, junior high, a lot of it was being classified as the loud kid and the kid that never stopped talking, the annoying kid, and was always criticized like very poorly. Not really even criticized, more like made fun of, but I'd still classify that as criticism in some way, as being, the loud kid. And that like wore on me all through junior high school. It made me feel like crap about myself a lot of the time.
So this stemmed like from elementary and like carried on?
Yeah, it started in elementary and kind of, built its way up into junior high. It obviously, and high school, but it obviously evolved differently through the years, and I changed as well. I think that criticism shaped my early development years in a lot of ways. Fairly poorly, but now I look back on it now and I'm like, those years I wouldn't take them back because it taught me a lot later on in life when I was looking back on those years and that criticism, I guess.
Do you think, I don't want it to like sound bad, but was it like criticism or did it even get to the point of like bullying?
Oh, it was bullying, yeah.
It was bullying.
Yeah. I take criticism as an overarching term for anything that is like, can be classified as bullying. Like constructive criticism and poor criticism can all be kind of lumped into the same thing for me. A lot of my criticism came more from classmates, but I think in talking to you about it, your criticism kind of more came from teachers.
Yes, which is tough because obviously a teacher's job is to teach you and help you get better. And they're going to tell you if you're doing something wrong. Yeah. But I feel like I just got like so heavily criticized on things that I didn't understand. Like I'm going to say like I'm not the smartest kid and I was not the smartest kid growing up in school. And so I think I would actually really not understand a topic. I would not understand a lesson that was being taught. And I really tried my best to understand what's being given in front of me, but I just could not connect. Have you ever had like that instance where someone's explaining something new to you and you're just like, you're listening to them, you're trying to like focus on what their words are, what they're saying, but it's just not clicking? Yeah. That was me like growing up. Like for all of schooling, whether it was in science class or math or social. I remember I even went in like high school, I would go to, what was it? We were taking the diplomas Was that in like grade 12?
In high school, yeah.
Yeah. And we would go for those like prep classes. So you would go for like X amount of hours a week. And for a couple of weeks, you would get prepped for that final exam or that final test. And so I would do that and it still like wouldn't click for me. And I would get like a 50 on that final one, even though I was putting all this extra effort in. So then I would get criticized from teachers like, well, obviously you're not paying attention. Obviously, like you're distracted. And I'm like, I'm just not learning. I'm just not getting it. You're not teaching it in a way for me to understand it. So I would get criticized all the time about that.
And slightly off topic, but I think that's a root cause or root issue of our education system in North America is that it's catered to basically a specific type of person who is able to listen and then apply that and then be able to apply that to a test. Whereas a lot of people, me included, are very hands-on learners. That's why I did well in high school, but I really thrived in SAIT, like at a technical school, where everything was hands-on project-based because there was essays and there was everything mixed in, but you worked on a project and you worked on a final project, right? So that's where I like thrived. Yeah. And I think that's what SAIT does really well. And Southern Alberta Institute of Technology for people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, we both graduated from SAIT, so we both like
it's a technical school, not a university, right?
No, so. But it still works great. And honestly, for my line of work, like for radio broadcasting, all of the announcers will say the same thing as they maybe are a little bit more distracted and they aren't traditional learners in the aspect of, oh, I'm going to write an essay and I can just literally read a book and then tell you exactly what it is. And right, that's just not how our brain works. No. So
I hate reading.
I do too.
Like I like reading stuff that I'm really interested in, but if there's just so much fluff, like that's why I like reading articles and not books, because the articles are so like it's one topic, it's not all over the place. I
like Archie comics.
Short, concise,
with
and
pictures.
they're usually about stupid stuff.
And they have pictures of them, and I'm like, nice, I can visually see what's going on. You also had criticism, and again, we're just kind of going through our personal stuff first, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more. But you also had criticism going in from sports too.
Yeah, so like I played hockey, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, curling. The culture of like minor sports or kids sports is it's all about learning as well, right? And so you're getting criticism every practice, every game. You're getting pulled off to the side, being told what to do, what not to do. So a lot of that is criticism based, but 95% of that, I would say, if you have a good coach, is constructive criticism because they're trying to make you better and trying to make the team better, right? Yeah.
Did you ever have a coach that was also a parent of a kid?
Oh yeah, like my dad coached as well. But
I hated those ones.
Oh, but he was hard. He was the hardest on me. Like he was way harder on me than any other kid.
Because the coach is a parent of a kid that's on the team, and that kid would be the captain. That kid would get all the special treatments. I'm just like, that's so frustrating to me. Yeah. Like you got to give criticism to your kid. You can't just like favor them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not be the same person I am today if it wasn't for the criticisms and like constructive criticisms that I received when I was a kid of like learning leadership, learning how to follow properly, follow direction, learning how to, take a back seat and not be the leader. If you're the like runt of the team, which I was on a lot of basketball teams because I was this like shorter guy, you can't do a lot of the work. So you got to make sure that you're being an asset to the people that can do all the work, right? Mm-hmm. And that is applicable to every factor of life. So I think that's where that criticism became really constructive for me, is that especially in my job and me being kind of an accessory to architects, right? I have to follow a lot of the time. I can't lead as much. I try to lead like with my faction of architectural technologists. So I think that sports criticism and way of upbringing kind of really affected the way that I live my life now, and especially my career. So that's been really cool to see as well. Yeah. So for you within your job, like how does criticism kind of affect your work and what you do day to day?
I feel like everybody criticizes the radio.
Yeah.
Honestly, like if you go to work and you're in your vehicle and you have a radio, you're probably criticizing the announcers at some point of your
time. Yeah.
Are you criticizing me or others?
No comment.
Okay.
No, I'm agreeing with you that yes, like the average listener will just say, oh, like I didn't like how they said that, or I didn't like that. But then people like us who listen to the radio 24/7 hyperanalyze that, right?
And if you listen to the radio and you don't like what was said or whatever it may be, you're probably not going to go and reach out to the radio station and say that. However, I've had like plenty of times where there's just like jerks.
Yep.
There's just people where it doesn't matter what you do, they're just going to complain.
That's
complain
life,
all the time.
Yep.
Today on my show, I was talking about wedding dresses. So over the weekend, my best friend and I, we went wedding dress shopping for her wedding, which is coming up in June, and is all excited. Like, I'm super honored to be able to be a part of that for her. But then it got me thinking, like, oh, what if she picks out a dress that I don't think looks flattering on her, or that does not look good, right? I was using that as a topic. And, you know, what would you do in this situation if, you know, someone, even like day to day, if someone was wearing something that did not look good on them, would you say something? Would you be outright in saying that? It was a really great topic, honestly. We got a lot of phone calls. We got a lot of texts. Got this one text that says, don't talk about love. It makes me sad because I'm lonely. I'm going to be turning off your radio station. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want me to say to that? Because of the one person who can't relate to this topic, is that going to like make me now stop talking about it? No. Sure, that one person took the time to like text in and say, I don't like this topic, which, that's going to come up and I'm going to see that and I'm going to be like a little disappointed in it.
Yeah.
But with the thousands of people who are listening to that radio station, I've had one person that has commented, texted in that says, oh, don't like it.
Yeah.
You got to just like run with it after. You can't like let it get to you. So I've had a ton of criticism from listeners in that aspect.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because I think that's a big difference between our jobs as well, is that you have hundreds of thousands of people that are listening to your content and criticizing your content, right? Whereas me, I have maybe 10, 20, 30 people at most overall criticizing my content, right? So that's a big difference, I think, and something that can be really difficult. When we're talking about the difference between your job and mine, is that you have a large group that is criticizing you and I have a very small group. So that can be hard to take as well.
Well, it's just interesting because I have other radio friends and they say that would you go call up any other profession to complain about what they're doing? Yeah,
like if somebody's walking through a building I design, are they going to call the architect and say, I don't like the way you did this?
No, but for some reason, because my voice is projected all through the city, that gives them the allowance to do that.
And I think part of it too is that it's like consumer-based product, right? So it's the same with like platforms like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. People can send something right away. A text is easy to send. A phone call is fairly easy to send. Doing an official write-up to an architecture firm or suing an architecture firm is completely different, right?
Yep.
So I think that's another difference between our jobs. But that's an interesting perspective, is that like it's one little voice that you're hearing kind of peckering in your ear that really has no influence in you. But like it's hard not to listen to those voices sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you're struggling or you're having a bad day, it's even harder to not listen to those voices, right?
Yeah, one a couple of months ago, I was having like a really crappy day. And I even told you about this, and I can't remember what was said, but this person texted in and just said that I'm horrible to listen to.
Yeah.
And of course, it was on the day that I was like not doing okay already in the first place. And that just like broke me. And I was like, that sucks.
Yeah.
But again, one person out of the thousands of people who are listening, you can't please everyone. That's the biggest thing about criticism. Someone's always going to have a problem with you.
And that's the unfortunate part about our world, and especially these days where there's a lot of hurt and a lot of hate in the world, is that hurt people. And I know that that's a pretty cliche saying, but it holds a lot of merit. Like the amount of people that get hurt by somebody and then feel the need to like project that on somebody else in a negative, criticizing way is not okay.
And that happens a lot of times in relationships too.
Oh, 100%. Like if I'm having a bad day, it's a lot easier for me. And I'll admit this, I'll be the first to admit this. If I'm having a bad day, it's a lot easier for me to blow up at you or like, you know, not like something that you're doing simply because I'm having a bad day, which is not okay, but that's human, right? Yeah. So we have to give ourselves, and this goes back to our Giving Grace podcast, of we need to give ourselves grace, but we also need to give grace to the people that are hurting us to understand where they're coming from as well. Whether it be your partner, whether it be a random guy on the street says something negative to you, you kind of have to also capture that thought, look back on where they're coming from, and maybe they're, you know, having a terrible day. So if you kill them with love, as some people say, right? And like just, you know, project love back at them, oftentimes that can disperse a conflict.
Have you had criticism within like romantic relationships?
Yeah, like I think you and I are really good with that, or getting better day by day with that.
We're good at that with criticism.
No, I mean like, sorry. what I'm trying to say is that we're good at giving each other constructive criticism, and not giving each other just like negative comments.
Have you know? Okay, so you haven't had an instance where you've been getting negative comments.
In our relationship,
you're just a perfect boyfriend in all your other past relationships.
But
wow,
I'm trying to figure out how to say this nicely.
Wow.
But there are times when you criticize me, and I know it's not constructive, but I know that you're going through something, so I kind of just, right? We're talking about two different things right now. You're talking about criticism as a whole. Criticism is an overarching term, but there's many different facets of it where it's constructive, non-constructive, or it's just blatant criticism for no reason, right? So I think that's where kind of you are not on the same page right now, is where you're saying like, you do criticize me, which you do, but sometimes it's constructive and sometimes it's not. 9 times out of 10, you do a really good job and it is constructive. But that 1 time out of 10, I have to kind of analyze and see where you're at and where your headspace is, because you might not mean to be non-constructive, right?
So you think that's also important when we're talking about criticism in this episode? It's like, criticism is good if it's constructive.
Yes.
You don't think criticism is good if it's not in an area that you can improve on?
There's many factors, because it can be, constructive criticism can be given in an incorrect way, and then it becomes non-constructive. If it's constructive criticism and it's delivered in a proper way, it's automatically constructive criticism. If you have something really good to say that is a criticism, but you say it in a terrible way, like you yell it or you project it in a way that your friend, your partner, whoever you're talking to is going to take it in a poor way, that's deconstructive criticism.
I think that happens a lot in relationships, where an example could even be like, I think I've maybe done this with you, is that you need to tidy up something, right? Like you need to clean the house, you need to put your laundry away, whatever it is. But if I just attack you because, oh, you're so bad at that, you never do that. Oh, again, now you're having to do this. That's not going to motivate you to do anything.
Not at all.
But if I criticize you in a way, if I give you constructive criticism of saying, hey, it looks so good when all your laundry's put away, and now look at how organized you are in your closet. Maybe we should be doing this more and getting into that habit of it instead of leaving your laundry on the ground. Yeah.
Or like if I'm in the middle of something and you're like, God, put the dishes away, or God, do this. Like you need to do this.
Yeah.
A better way is like, hey, Dylan, when you're done doing the task that you're doing right now, or whatever you're doing right now, can you please go and do this?
Yeah.
Instead of go do the dishes, or like, there's so much crap on the ground. Like, it's so easy and so hard at the same time to just flip your little switch of thinking and say, okay, if I say this in a nice way, it's going to be received a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. But I think that's the problem, where a lot of people like,
oh, there's a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to like receiving negative criticism, or deconstructive criticism, as we want to call it, I think a major thing that people need to realize is going back to that hurt people thing, right?
Okay.
If you're having a fight with your partner, your friend, with your person you're talking to randomly, or like whatever criticism it may be, at work, at home.
Yeah.
I think it's important for you, if you're receiving that criticism and then you take it negatively and say, wow, that was not constructive, or I did not like the way that person said that to me. Take a step back, and literally you can take a pause. You're allowed to like not respond
as the person who's like
receiving
it. Okay.
Take a pause and analyze. Is this person, number one, I think is the biggest one, is this person someone that I trust? Is this someone that I should be taking criticism from? Because if you don't trust them, or like you don't take that criticism from them, just accept it, say, okay.
That is so true.
Like if you're getting criticism from Joe Blow off the street saying, I hate your radio show, like you're terrible on the radio, that person means absolutely nothing to you.
I read a thing once that was saying, if someone has an opinion about you, if someone wants to give advice to you, if someone criticizes you, whatever it may be, but they're not someone that is in a higher position that you want to learn from, or if they're not in a position where they are doing really good for themselves, if it's not somebody that you want to be or want to, get up to their level, and they're below you, as crappy as that may sound, if they're below you and you have nothing to gain from them, why are you taking the advice from them?
Yeah, I agree.
Why are you taking the criticism from them?
I agree with that 95%, because I think the 5% that I'm talking about is that sometimes the people that are lower than you on the totem pole or whatever you want to call it in a like work environment or a life environment, they can actually have like a lot to say. There's been times when I've like hang out with younger kids than me, like high school kids or like even toddlers that say something off the cuff, right? Like they say something about me or like with regards to the situation that we're having. And it's like, wow, that was really profound. No, I'm not kidding. I don't have any like examples. I don't have any like legit examples, but I know it's happened in my life where like someone younger than me or someone lower than me, like a new employee or somebody says something or has an idea, and I'm like, wow, that was actually really good. You know, but you're right. 95% of the time, the people that are lower than you, if they're saying something to criticize you and it's non-constructive, throw it out. Really.
But then from what you said, it's good still to listen to everything that's being said to you.
Oh, 100%.
Unless you have haters that are continually, I get this all the time on either TikTok or whatever it may be, people constantly just like spewing negative comments. Yeah. And
block
I
out
read
the
them.
Haters.
I was going to say, if y'all follow me on TikTok and go on my TikTok lives, you know that Dylan goes on every single one of my lives and he will be like that person that will block everything. It is so funny when you do that because people now on my TikTok obviously know who you are.
Yeah.
And they will also be like, where's Dylan? Like, he needs to block this guy. Yeah. So the point is, it's like, yes, obviously with your own judgment, look at the criticism that is being given to you. If it's just like negative and people are just saying horrible stuff for no reason and it doesn't have any prompt to it, and it doesn't have anything behind it, then obviously don't take that into account.
Yeah.
If there is something of a criticism that maybe is not constructive, but maybe there's some merit behind it and you just don't want to listen to it, you should also, I don't know, take that into account. You know what I mean? Because I think we get criticism a lot. We just ignore it because it's not what we want to hear.
Yeah, and I think that also this is all a process, right? This has nothing to do with us being experts. We are not experts. We are not preaching. This is all like a learning process for us as well.
Yeah.
Right. And we're trying to get better at receiving and giving criticism as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought of something with respect to that as well, is that there's 4 things that you kind of need to do when you're receiving criticism in a way. The first would be like you receive it. You learn how to receive it well. You learn how to take that in and analyze those thoughts, which is the next one. Process it.
Yeah.
You process the things that were given to you, whether they're negative or they're positive. You process them, right? If they're negative, this is where you can kind of stop and be like, all right, enough with that. Don't need to like take that further. Number 3 would be like plan it and like say, what's my plan of action to like deal with this? So if there is a constructive criticism and you're like, man, I really need to be better at that, especially in a relationship. I find that a lot where you bring something to me and you're like, hey, I'm not happy with the way you're doing this. And then I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to do that because I can't fix it immediately, right?
No.
You have to plan it out and say, hey, okay, how can I put this into action?
Yeah.
Right? And then the last one would be execute, I think.
What was it again?
So it would be receive it, learn how to receive it well.
Receive it.
Learn how to process it well, take it in.
Process it.
Analyze it, and then plan on how you're going to execute it. So plan and execute. Yeah.
Execute. Gotcha.
Yeah. I just came up with that now.
You're so smart.
Not really. It took me forever to get that out.
And again, thank you for that question that came out.
Yeah.
Someone messaged us and asked us, how do we handle criticism? And we could talk about criticism. So I hope that answered that question of how we handle it. Well, thank you for, again, listening to our podcast. This was episode 7. We do have our podcast on Apple. We have it on Spotify. And if you could listen to, or if you could actually follow us on Instagram, Living Life Authentically Podcast. We'd appreciate that as well.
Awesome.
I'll see you next week. Also, it's Dylan's birthday next week. So I'm excited.
Yes, the big 2-4.
Oh, wow, you're old. Okay.